The crowd.
Welcome back, everybody, to the World Championship Series Season 1. We are just past the halfway point of the day, and we are now in the elimination match of Group C. I know that a lot of you guys are excited for this match, but before we get to that specific player, let's first welcome our Polish Protoss player. He's been in amazing shape this year, and he's looking to join two of his teammates in the round of 8, Tiolo and Snoot. But before he can get there, he needs to win here and now. Please welcome Team Liquid's MaNa. I know a lot of you guys in the audience have been waiting for this. This player is the only French representative in the top 16. If he wants to make it to the top 8, he must defeat MaNa here and now. Boitier, I better hear you guys. Please welcome FireCake. In this match, it'll be France versus Poland. Players, please shake hands. I'm personally super excited to see how this series will turn out. Experts, what do you guys think?
Let the games begin, Smix. That's what I think. Let the Swarm host come to play because we have a couple of hours to spare. I'm excited for this one. FireCake versus MaNa, a rematch from the longest game in WCS official history, gets its time on the main stage. With me, Fenna, Kalaris, and Todd. Todd, I know you're all about this match. Very excited to give us your insight towards this, and especially on MaNa.
MaNa, he's had a tough time sometimes versus FireCake, and this time he's definitely going to want to look, to play a lot more aggressive, not let it go into a split map situation, in which case I do think that he would still lose to FireCake, even though overall he's a more well-rounded player in my opinion. FireCake, though, is somebody who plays very well to his image, so MaNa's going to have to keep that in mind, and if he wants to be aggressive, he's going to have to be careful not to get tricked and, fall into a trap of FireCake's.
MaNa so far this season in WCS has had a pretty successful one. He came into the round of 32, defeated Violet and then teammate Bunny to land himself in the round of 16, where he lost versus Hydra yesterday, Fenna.
Yeah, I lost against Hydra yesterday. That was a painful series. I want to look back to the round of 32, though, where he plays against Violet, because there was a game on Deadwing where Violet got to Swarmos, which is what FireCake's going to be going for, and the way he played against Swarmos was really inspirational to me. It wasn't sit back, be passive, go for the Tempest. He just got Colossus up, he went Stalkers, and he abused the mobility of the Stalkers. Pressuring at the front, blinking into the main, he was all over the place, just taxing the multitasking of Violet. And I think if he goes for something like that, doesn't allow FireCake to get up to that big spine spore defense, everything set up perfectly how he wants it, then he can take out the series.
Well, what do you think that MaNa's going to be able to bring from day 1 to day 2? Games yesterday against Hydra, sorry. What do you think he's bringing it into day 2?
I think against FireCake, and from the games that he had yesterday, I think he brings in a bit more aggression and really doesn't let FireCake get to where he wants to. But at the same time, FireCake, for me, you mentioned that MaNa is a well-rounded player. I think FireCake is now a more well-rounded player as well. He doesn't necessarily need Swarm hosts to be able to beat MaNa here. I think he could stand toe-to-toe with him with other unit compositions quite easily.
All right, well, let's go deeper into FireCake now, boys. Let's really concentrate on him. What has made you believe that he's changed to a more all-round player overall? What is it? Like, highlight a couple of issues for us here, or a couple of highlights, should I say?
Well, the thing is that he, as I said, he doesn't really need the Swarm host. We've seen him not so much in the round of 32. In the round of 32, we saw him using the Swarm host quite a lot. But elsewhere, when he's been playing tournaments, especially against Protoss, actually, he's been using really strong transitionary methods to the Swarm host, a la kind of Snoot style that we've seen in the past. So maybe he took a little bit of inspiration from there, regardless of the fact it is very powerful.
His results have stepped up a lot, actually. In Fragbite, I think he 3-0'd Soul Keys, and without using any Swarm host, so...
Yeah, Fragbite as well. He also took on MaNa, and he went for 4 hatch before pool, which is a bit insane, because if you ever scout that, Todd, you're obviously just going to kill it, right?
He beat Rain as well.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He made Rain quit. That's how painful it is.
This was only a couple of weeks ago as well. This was just around the 9th or so of March. So a couple of weeks. There's a lot to take from that series to this one.
Yeah. He went for the Ling Hydra, like I said. So he is capable of playing that mid-game, but he will always go for the Swarm Host once he gets there, once he gets to the late game. So yeah, he can do some other stuff, but the main focus of FireCake will be the Swarm Host and Locust just rolling around everywhere doing a load of damage.
All right, let's talk about this matchup then before we go over to the commentary team. It seems like when you have Swarm Host, and this is what it's probably going to be eventually if we do get to that point, Swarm Host versus Protoss. We saw Snoop play this earlier on, and FireCake has shown that multiple times before. Once you get to this point with Swarm Host, despite Protoss doing all the right things and having the right ideas, it seems like it's not beatable at this point. If that happens to MaNa, is it over?
I think if FireCake, depending on the maps and positions and all that, if he can, kind of split the map, get a lot of static defense up, and they go into, Tempest in an equal game, in a game where, nobody took a lot of damage. If you go into Tempest and then you're facing, split map situation with kind of what we saw earlier from Snoot against Showtime, I don't think that you can win against somebody like FireCake, personally.
Well, how important are these maps going to play then? We have Expedition, Deadwing, and Overgrowth, especially considering the styles that we're going to see play through to this. Talk to us about these. Expedition lost. Not a really big Swarm Host map. It is possible to play it. Overgrowth, a massive Swarm Host map. And Deadwing in the middle here. So it doesn't really emphasize a lot of Swarm Host play, right?
Yeah, Expedition Lost is a funky pick for FireCake there. I'm not exactly sure why he went for that one.
Compared to Overgrowth, yeah. I think you would have expected him to pick that, but I mean,
maybe he uses the Roach style. Maybe he tries to break down.
I think he can still go Swarm Host.
Yeah, you can definitely still use Swarm Host on this, but the thing that stands out the most for me, and you guys can argue with this, is if it gets to the 3rd map, this is where MaNa's in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It looks like it has to be a 2-0 for MaNa. If it gets to that 3rd map, he's in a lot of trouble.
And the thing is, we covered how we think that MaNa is going to play very aggressively to try and, do damage before the Swarm Hosts are there, but FireCake, I'm pretty sure he's aware of that. And there are quite a few counters. Like, if you know that Protoss is going to want to be very aggressive, you just need to put down, static defense before that. If you know that he's very reluctant to go into Tempest, then you can exploit that. And it's happened to me, so I can tell you all about it.
So everyone on the internet, we're talking about it, everyone's talking about it, Swarm Host, Swarm Host, Swarm Host. What happens if MaNa just tries to circumvent all of that and say, okay, I'm just going to do 2-base all-in, Immortal all-in, Blinkstalk all-in, DTs, any type of tricks he can stop?
He's actually really good against 2-base, I think, FireCake. He's really, really good. Like, kind of like, Slivko back in the days. He was very good at Broodlord Infestor, so people were like, well, I'm just going to 2-base him. But Slivko, that little cheeky duck, that Russian buddy, he always got a lot of Zerglings and Roaches out, went for big surrounds, and held almost anything you throw at him. He very rarely lost to 2-base, and I feel like FireCake is kind of the same.
Okay, so last question to you, Todd. Which way does MaNa play this? Which way would you think he will play this? Does he go aggressive against knowing that FireCake's good at that? Does he try to combat the Swarm Host the longer the game goes? How does he play?
I think he still needs to be aggressive, but just to make sure that he reads everything perfectly. Because if there is, just a few missed force fields here and there, or when an attack that he doesn't see coming, a flank, he starts losing sentries, or he has to recall even one time out of position, he's dead. Same thing for like a Muta transition. A Muta transition is not impossible out of FireCake. He's definitely one of those guys that can do stuff like that.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys, for the input. We're going to go over to the commentary team for this big match. The loser is eliminated from the World Championship Series here. Which one is it going to be in a fight between France and Poland?
Good question, Apollo, as we move into a matchup that has a good amount of history behind it. FireCake and MaNa, any of you who checked out that WCS Challenger match last year, well, that was for some people, it was one of the more painful. Some people, it was one of the more fun ones if you're one of those crazy Zergs that like Swarm Hosts a lot.
Probably the most memorable game ever played on Ekelon Waste, despite the fact that I saw a couple of great TVZs on that map as well. Maybe one of the best games that I've ever seen back then between Lucira and I think it was Ryong or someone like that. Anyway, that was a great game. But everybody, whenever you say Ekelon Waste, everyone will always be, that's the map where MaNa played against FireCake. First map is going to be Expedition Lost. The boys at the desk were a little bit confused about it. I'm not that confused, and I also don't think that Snoot would be confused at all, because if you can get a couple of Swarm Hosts between the natural and the third over Protoss, there's almost nothing you can do. Stoon has been very vocal about it. He calls it the sweet spot, and that's what it is, Nate.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. FireCake also had a lot of success on this map. He was able to pick this one up in his Fragbite series against MaNa by exploiting a couple of misplaced units and using a lot of misdirections, forcing some mistakes. But let's see who can take this series. They've had many a historic battle before. What will happen this time? We are on Expedition Lost for map number 1, and our first player in the northeast position representing France and Punchline, he is FireCake. Boy, did the crowd cheer for him when he came out, Kev.
That was sick, actually. That gave me nerd chills, man. They were loud. They were way louder than I expected them to be.
Yeah, that French passion was very strong. This guy needs to be able to overcome that. In the bottom left, representing Team Liquid and Poland, it is MaNa.
Expedition Lost, our first map. Of course, the sweet spot I was talking about is near the rocks there, you know, between both bases. Oh my god.
Well, I think we already know how MaNa feels.
Nate, he's not gonna see it.
No?
It's misrallied. Oh my god. Can you believe this? I did not expect game number 1 to play out like that. I didn't even see that cheeky little guy make his way across the map, and he's going to build 2 gateways in the main base of FireCake.
I think we get a very quick understanding of how MaNa feels about FireCake, boys. I think if anybody here was like, I wonder how MaNa feels about this guy.
I cannot. Oh, it's pool first though. Okay.
15 pool.
All right, so that means that this is definitely no man overboard just yet for FireCake. You do want to eventually find this. If I was MaNa, I would not reveal my zealots and gateways before I had to have at least 3 zealots.
I can't believe he didn't check the Hall of his main with that Overlord.
Me neither, but like once again, you know, he's opening up with a pool. It's not a double hatch before pool, which would have been a disaster. It's not even a hatch before pool. So I think if MaNa saves up for 3 zealots, I think that is the best thing that he could possibly do. But it will all come down to that Overlord on the south side of the map. It's heading towards the natural of MaNa. Will it be able to go into the main base? It could be. Some Zerg players don't like to do it because there are some weird Protoss players out there, including myself, that like to open up with a Stalker, and that means that you would lose that Overlord. But, you know, if he doesn't see anything in the natural, he might just send it in.
He might just die. Yeah, he's just going to move in with that first zealot. He wants to use the probe to body block, but there are a couple of lings on the way. He's going to immediately move in for the surround, and actually he's going to be able to catch this probe, but swings a couple volleys out there at the zealot, and he's got 1 drone down already. That probe is actually preventing surface area for another drone to get on top of him. Now the second zealot's going to come out, and this one, and by the guys who's already gotten a significant number of kills ready.
Yeah, but still though, I think that right now that all that FireCake needs to do is get a spine crawler somewhere. He gets a surround off on zealot number 2. He's of course losing a couple of drones in the process, but I think this is going pretty damn well for FireCake because now he has his queen now. The queen is on full HP. He has a couple of zealots as well. I don't like this for MaNa. I know he has killed more than a handful of drones already, but I don't think that he's in a good position.
Yeah, even though he's killed a good number of workers, all of his tech is here. I mean, this is these types of proxies, these cheeses are all in, and MaNa's zealots get caught out as soon as they step out of the gateway. All he can do is back himself up to these gates, but at this point, FireCake just builds lings, and it doesn't even seem like he's concerned enough to build a spine crawler. He has enough money to build a hatch, and he's got a drone headed to his natural.
Okay, this is kind of a tricky fight right now, but these zealots are taking so much damage, so both of these zealots are going to fall as well. The queen is still there, very healthy on HP. Now the Zerglings and queen will start working on these gateways, and I think FireCake, slowly but steady, can either decide to squeeze out a couple of drones, or he can just start making nothing but Zerglings, which is what he's currently doing, and just rally them across the map.
Yeah, he starts up that expansion. Another zealot's going to pop out. He will not be able to escape. FireCake shuts this down without too much trouble. Immediately beginning to build drones once again, saves the zealot. Now, there is another gateway on the way back home. He hasn't started a cybernetics core yet, but he is mining gas.
I don't think that MaNa's going to be able to stabilize, Nate. He only has 14 probes. He's going to be forced to fight with the probes for quite a while before his first zealot sees the light of day, or at least the first zealot that is spawning at the side of the map where it's supposed to spawn. He's going to lose 5, 6, 7 probes, and I think if he loses 10 probes, he's just going to tap out. Great hold there by FireCake. Great decision by him to go for a pool before hatch.
Yeah, I think this... we talked about how you deal with Stormhost. Some players like to kill the guy before he gets there, but this was a bit early for MaNa to try to get this victory. As the Lings come into the mineral line, the probes are going to try to drill around them to pick them off, but now the workers begin to drop like flies for MaNa. There's too many Zerglings to be stopped with just workers. FireCake's on top of every last probe of MaNa. He's going to try to get this zealot out, but it's going to be in vain, Kev. GG. FireCake takes game number 1.
quick and easy, just like that. Opening up with a pull, squeezing out a couple of Zerglings immediately. I was a little bit surprised to see MaNa show up with the first Zealot instead of waiting for Zealot number 2 and 3. But I guess if FireCake would have gone for hatch before pull, or maybe even double hatch before pull, then he can start working on drones immediately. Then it would have been a good decision. But against the opening that he went for, you know, showing the first Zealot is just making it very, very easy for FireCake. And you know, he handled it very well, got a couple of good clutch rounds off, used the Queen as well to its fullest potential. Just great hold there by FireCake. Didn't even let it get all that close.
Yeah, the second Zealot getting caught so quickly as well really didn't make things easier for him. He tried to step out the first one from between the 2 mineral patches to come in as backup and save it, but it just was not meant to be.
No, even if you like open up the way that FireCake did, it can still be a little bit tricky to defend if the Zealot number snowballs. Like if you have 4 or 5 Zealots, then there are moments where you think like, hey, I have quite a few Zerglings, I think I can take this fight, and then suddenly you see these Zealots slicing through your Zerglings, and you're like, I shouldn't have fought over here, but FireCake did not let that happen.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be. As MaNa drops that first map, we are now moving towards 2 maps where still there's a lot of potential for Swarm Host-based play, but MaNa's already shown us that he's not willing to go crazy with his build order, so maybe he just steps it down a bit and still does a little bit more craziness.
I think that was pretty crazy.
Well, I meant he's showing us he's not afraid to do crazy things.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, Nate, I'm not sure how often you see proxy gates, but it's been a while that I've seen it. You know, unless you watch certain streams where they do it over and over again. But that was definitely a very crazy start to the series. Not the start that I expected. Deadwing spawning positions are going to be very, very important. FireCake would love vertical. MaNa would love cross map.
Yep. That's the way that these guys played actually when they had their last bout on this map in the Friday Masters. It was a map where FireCake went for hatch. I have a strange feeling that MaNa will probably do something that makes that not quite so good, maybe like scouting, getting an idea of what's going on. So we'll have to see as we are now loaded into map number 2 in this losers match. If MaNa drops this game, he's eliminated from the World Championship Series Premier League. In the northwest of Deadwing, we have the French Zerg from Punchline. He's FireCake.
And over here on the right bottom side of Deadwing, we have our Liquid Protoss player hailing from Poland. It is MaNa. Before we go too much into this ZvP and this series, Nate, what an amazing tournament this has been for Team Liquid already. 2 players currently in the top 8 and still having MaNa in this tournament and still having Bunny in this tournament as well. It's just like these guys, they just pick up all the European top dogs.
Yeah, that's the way it's been for Team Liquid, man. These guys have always had a lot of heavy hitters, but most of the time the spotlight was on players like Tasia and Hero. With the new WCS system, it really gives these guys a chance to not only represent their regions, but their teams a lot better. And I don't think Team Liquid could be much happier with the results and the performance of all the guys that they brought to WCS today.
Yeah, and even a couple of the guys that haven't made it very far in WCS have been posting pretty good results lately. Thinking of my fellow country Dutchman, Red. I think he's been playing very well. He's had a couple of great games lately. He didn't make it into WCS because he lost against his teammate TLO, but even Red is really starting to look very good again. So overall, it's a great time to be a member of Team Liquid or to be a Team Liquid fan.
Yeah, it's always nice to see, you know, these guys being supported for such a long time and still showing again and again that they can compete at the highest level of competition that they have available to them. And in this game, we see with these cross bonds, MaNa is going to probe scout. He wants to know what's up. He's checking him out. He didn't open with a forge, so he's not looking to get, you know, anywhere near as close as aggressive as we saw in the last map. But FireCake, he opened up with that pool just to make sure. Then he's going to take his hatch. And at this point, there's a lot of things that he could do. He could go for a third base pretty quickly, which is pretty standard. MaNa did not take any gases after his gateway, so he just wanted to play a little bit safe himself.
I'm surprised that MaNa gets that 1 probe before he gets his spine, and I guess it adds up with the gas. So despite the fact that MaNa opened up with a gateway, this is still a very, very quick nexus for him. As he pretty much got it as quick as possible while including the gateway.
I think it lines up pretty well versus the pool first opening.
Yeah, like, it makes perfect sense.
MaNa can't be upset with the way that this is laid out.
Nothing, not at all. I think I would even say that as a Protoss in general, you're happy with the way that this went. You see, all right, he already made 2 Zerglings. He opened up with a pool before hatch. Yes, I got a gateway before my nexus, but other than that, my opening was as economic as it could possibly be.
Yep. He's going to be able to come in and see that this gas is being mined, which is very, very important. FireCake has been favoring that Ling play. Fenner on the desk was telling us earlier, you know, that Ling Hydra play. It's been pretty popular. A lot of Zergs have been using it. We've seen actually Hydra almost stick to that exclusively so far in a lot of the games he's played recently against Protoss, and even just Ling openings in general have been strong.
It's very hard to play against it as a Protoss because you're never sure how much they are going to commit to, you know, Lings and Hydras. Often there is a follow-up, either it's Swarm Hulls or it could be a big Muta switch as well. But if you underreact, then suddenly it's a ridiculous amount of Hydras, and then nothing but the lovely sound of Hydra spitting at your gateways that are most likely forming a wall, or at your gateway units, which means they are going to evaporate like thin air. Is more unpleasant as a Protoss.
Yeah, it's all about reaching just like a solid number of Hydras. That a gateway push doesn't help, because how fast the Hydras attack, you start to just knock down waves of Zealots with just 1 or 2 volleys, and at that point the Stalkers don't have time to get any damage done. So there's a lot of different ways that this can play out. Zergling speed is close to halfway done. MaNa is a nice, well-placed Zealot to actually block that Zergling from going in to get a scout.
That Zealot has been lifting a little bit, man, because that's a large gap to cover, but he has broad shoulders.
Yeah, he's got some very broad shoulders, Roddy.
He's like, the gains made this all possible. You can see him almost evolve.
Yeah, it's staying strong. He's going for a Stargate behind all of this, tucked away in that main base. And with the Stargate, the Oracle is really bad because there's so much you can get out of it. On a map like this, with Overlords being spread out, maybe you can still go Phoenix?
I like Phoenixes, you know that, and I would probably play Phoenix from this position, but I think that MaNa is just going to play with a single Oracle, force out a couple of Spore Crawlers, maybe get a cheeky drone kill or 2, and if you can get more than 2, well, that's just fantastic. But from that point on, you just use that Oracle to have some map presence, see what's going on, drop a Revelation here and there, attack a couple units. If he plays Phoenixes, that would excite me, but I'm not expecting it.
I'm very interested to know how FireCake's going to take this game as it progresses into the later stages, as I don't see anything right now that would indicate that MaNa's going to be going for any type of all-in-ish push anytime soon. But cross spawns is generally not on Deadwing where we see Swarm Host play come out. So does FireCake go for a big Ling Hydra play? He's actually going for a Roach Warren before he even gets that lair.
Like, I don't think it's impossible. I think it's a safety Roach Warren. I don't think he's going to do too crazy with it. Of course, he is getting the missile attack, so eventually he might throw in a couple of Roaches, but I'm not expecting a very early, ridiculously strong Roach attack. This has actually been a relatively uneconomic opening for FireCake, because this hatchery was, I would even say, a little late to the party. Just now at the 7-minute and 40-second mark, he's starting to saturate this base. His drone count is very high, though, so that is the good news about all this.
He's got a good amount of income at this point in the game. There's that Oracle that you were talking about now crossing the map.
Yeah, there's not a single Spore out just yet. So I think if it flies straight into this middle line, it should be able to get 4 or 5 drone kills. I would go for base number 3. There's only a single Queen here. I think 4 drones is very possible here, if not 5.
Yeah, it takes 1 hit on that Queen, and he's got 2, 3 weakened drones. Okay, manages to snap all of those up, and he's actually going to move close to Roddy's magic number. He's got 4 drone kills, 5, 6, and he gets away.
Solid. Safe.
Shout out to our Europeans out there watching, as the lair is close to finishing up now for FireCake, and we can see where he really wants to take this game. Some Zerglings are going to swing into the 3rd base, but there's a little bit too much here for him to make anything of this. Do you like MaNa's position? I feel like this 3rd, starting up pretty much around when the 3rd got saturated for FireCake, can't be too bad.
No, not at all. This is a very standard PvZ scenario. He has that Oracle, he got a couple of drone kills with it, which is nice. It's not something you're necessarily banking on, but it's something you definitely always hope for. I don't think he should struggle too much against a big Roach Hydra attack. The way that MaNa takes this base, that can be a little bit tricky, but you know, a Zerg player can't really shoot too much from the low ground, because then units can get force fielded in from the high ground and you can end up losing everything. There is this push walking across the map. This is very similar to what Showtime was doing. For some reason, FireCake has missed it all the way up to this point. He has to be careful. I don't think that Zergling number is high enough, because there are a couple of Zealots in the mix. That is something that MaNa did better than Showtime did, and let's not forget about that Oracle with Pulsar Beam. This could be very tricky. He needs a couple of Roaches, and he does have a couple of Roaches. I think
he's going to bring the Lings in from one side, Roaches from another, but there's the recall away. FireCake with 10 more Roaches in tow. Already going back into drones. I think MaNa forced out what he wanted to with that.
Wow, that is a little sweet spot right there, man.
Actually very
you
well
just
hidden.
want to wrap around Zealots like that. Is that just me who thinks like this? Like, I can just see like a big charge load warp in with a couple of DTs in the mix, and then you just 360 degrees surround this little sweet tech spot. MaNa has missed all of it, and he definitely has to spot this Spire, because if he doesn't, I mean, FireCake is putting a lot of money into missile upgrades and stuff, but if he sees that he's playing against Blink Stalkers and Robo and this is cross-map, I will not be surprised at all to see him banking up a lot of resources and switch into Mutalisk. And some people may think like, well, you should never... Okay, he spots it. He sees the Spire as well. So from this point on, what I think is key for MaNa is that he keeps sending hallucinations over and over again. And if you see no more units, you probably want to start throwing in a couple of Phoenixes already, because, you know, if nothing is being spent on anything, he's probably banking up for a big Muta switch.
He's starting at the Warp Prism as the Spire gets closer to finishing. He's got that +2 and Blink on the way, as we generally see in this matchup. But a Templar Archives, so he's rounding out his tech. I mean, High Templar never really bad against late game Zerg, since you can use it to pick off the Vipers, and Archons can be useful in other situations. But this Warp Prism, I'm still, like, if he goes straight for Mutas, yeah, that shouldn't do too much for him.
No, the Prism shouldn't be able to do a whole lot. This is a very interesting Muta switch, because I don't feel like he's going all out on the Mutas. He's just gonna, like, force MaNa to defend.
Yeah, we've seen a couple Zergs do this, actually.
Yeah, it is pretty cute, and I kind of hate playing against this as well, because often you see an overreaction from Protoss. You see, like, second Stargate, Fleet Beacon, let's go, and then suddenly, you know, you spend thousands of resources upon units that are very good against Mutalisk, but are kind of bad against everything else. The fact that he's going for High Templars again before Colossus, like, it's very good against Vipers, but I don't think it's very good against Swarmos. And it's very, very likely, as that Swarm Infestation Pit, started wiggling, and that Locust upgrade is being researched, that we will see Swarmos.
Yeah, that seems to be the way that this game is headed as he makes that move towards Hive. So Swarm Hosts and Vipers will be coming out around the same time this game. And with Storm on the way, it's like, okay, you have some useful tech, but unless you're going for one of those one-punch builds, which on cross-spawn Deadwing, I don't think are going to be too effective.
I'm giggling because that Prism, man, that Prism has one destination, and you know it.
Yeah, he's going to the sweet. He's going. He's going to the promised land, Roddy.
I mean, it's pretty well protected right now, but that's just like the Protoss in us. MaNa can't help that. And of course, everybody at home is like, well, there's no way, if nothing is going on the map, that he's ever going to be able to kill those buildings. It doesn't matter. That works like a magnet on us Protoss players.
Yeah.
Just the only thing
that Warp Prism is there. He's like, you can just move away. Yeah. He's like, come on, come on.
This would be so beautiful to just destroy those 5 buildings.
Yeah, this is like, that's where you want to drop a nuke, man. Yeah. Just blow it all up. Send the Zerg back to the Stone Age. Starting up a bunch of spine crawlers, so we begin to see the static defense take form on the map. This will be FireCake's way of locking positions down so that he can move his units around more freely, but MaNa is positioning himself outside the base of FireCake now.
Yeah, but like the first Swarmos are out, Locust upgrade is done, and even if MaNa starts burning a lot of Storms, he might be able to get a couple of Hydras, but I feel this is very, very similar to Showtime's push on Violent Research Station against Snoot. There's just no way, like, you can break this. At least I don't think you can. MaNa's already going up to a 4th base. His +3 is contaminated or something. I feel like it's not going forward at all. It's taking forever.
If it was, it just started researching again. He throws a couple Storms to push this army away on the left side. I do like this, blinking a few Stalkers up the cliff, but he's not dealing critical damage just yet. Now he's working on the hatchery, and I do like this. As long as he doesn't get caught, he's spreading out quite a bit. FireCake, try to catch this army.
FireCake sends a couple of units from the right side.
Really he targets a couple of the Templar.
I would love to just see him drop a Storm or 2 on these units over here. They were just asking for it, but I think that MaNa just doesn't even want to burn.
Hero Stalker, he has big dreams.
Well. He has Blink.
Big dreams. He gets it. Queen, you had a transfuse. What are you doing?
Oh, really?
What are you doing?
I think...
yeah, but he injected too. He injected before the hatchery died.
Really?
Yeah.
them greedy Zergs, mate.
Yeah, that Queen.
He had one job. High Templars were miscontrolled a little bit there. I believe that MaNa... Man, this actually got a...
Your Swarmos are quite valuable. He's going to force field right on top of them, pushing some of the Locusts away. There's some Storms, and these Swarmos are actually taking a lot of damage. If he can finish these off, that'd be really nice for MaNa. 2 of them are going to get caught in the crossfire as some Roaches and Hydras get time warped on the right side. Stalkers blink forward, picks off every last Swarmos to FireCake. Another set of Force Fields and Storms are going to eradicate all of the Hydralisks in this army.
Little reckless there by FireCake. MaNa was reckless before, but this was definitely way too reckless for FireCake, exposing all of his units and just standing over there without any Locust backup whatsoever, even rallying them a little bit into the Protoss army. MaNa right now is obviously very, very eager to counterattack, and I think it's more promising than the last time, but of course, this is very hard to break without Colossus and stuff, but maybe he can just kill that hatchery again, you know, just do something, or maybe if he can somehow micro his way around these Locusts, he can get a couple of Swarmos again, but he has to be very careful that he doesn't overcommit.
Yeah, the static defense is really going to help to round out this defense as the Locust waves continue to press forward. The Spine Crawlers deal a lot of damage to the Stalkers. He pushes in again, but there's the Abduct on top of that Archon.
Yeah.
And that's just frustrating. That's a very expensive unit to lose. Those 2 hatcheries finishing up on the left side. FireCake's okay to lose a spine or 2 because he's telling himself, I've got 2 more bases finishing up. The base that you picked off is back. I don't really care if you kill a wave of locusts or 2 and maybe a couple spines. I'm alive.
This is truly what hurts, that MaNa has lost not only all of his sentries, I believe he also lost his Oracle, so he doesn't really have any fast unit out there that can scout this easily. If he would have known about those 2 hatcheries going up on the left side of the map, he would have just gone for that. You know, there's no use in like micro and blink stalkers against locusts because, you know, that's sweeping leaves on a windy day, Nate. Like you're not really going anywhere.
It's like, yes, I have really good control and I can kill all this stuff, but it's not, you know, it's not really putting you closer towards winning the game. This Colossus transition, on the other hand, by MaNa will allow him to take a little bit better fights, more easy to push through waves of locusts, but the swarm host count continuing to climb. He's now going up to 17.
Oh my god, MaNa has placed top 32 or better in over 40 international tournaments. That is an insane statistic.
He's been around for a while, huh? He's kicked a lot of ass in his StarCraft 2 career. These stalkers blink up towards this base in the center position, and he might be able to kill this hatchery this time, but he really needs to make sure he can get away. Oh, actually, he blinks down, goes for the Vipers. Not going to be able to get any of them thanks to another perfect blinding cloud. Yeah. And he's actually just going to throw away a lot of resources of this army. Oh, okay, that was cute.
He still lost quite a few, though. He definitely lost a little bit there. But he also got a handful of drones. He has found one of the bases on the left side of the map, and this is very good. Just picking up these hatcheries. That was a useless investment so far for FireCake. MaNa's going to spot this base as well. He's probably asking to himself, he's like, man, like, where are you getting the money from? Why are you just taking all these bases? And then you realize, well, it's already a 20-minute game. FireCake marching across the map again. There are Colossus in the mix. Of course, there are Vipers as well. Maybe a couple of feedbacks. That would be amazing.
Yeah, he needs the feedback. Gets 1-2 of the Vipers. Only 1 Viper left. He's throwing the Storms down on top of the Swarm hosts, and he still has both Colossi alive. So the Stalkers come in from the top. He's getting in. A couple of the Swarm hosts take a few pot shots as he clears out the Hydralisks. He has an Observer here storming the Swarm hosts once again and continuing to give chase.
I have never seen anybody kill this many Swarm hosts in a 20-minute game against FireCake. He's playing very, very aggressive with them, and I think after this attack, he's going to scale back a little bit because this is just not working out. Fantastic flank there with the Stalkers, getting all of those Swarm hosts. MaNa playing phenomenal so far.
FireCake is down to 2 Swarm hosts. MaNa has a massive army consisting of 4 Colossi and enough Templar to get a couple more feedbacks. He still has this Warp Prism ravaging the northwest base, keeping both players on 4 bases. Actually, MaNa's finished at 5th on the right side. His charge is done, so these Zealots can do a little bit more work against the actual standing forces of FireCake.
I mean, FireCake is definitely going to play this way more passive now. He's like, all right, the first attack was a little reckless. The second one, I felt like maybe I'm in an okay position, but of course there was no creep there. There was no static defenses there. And the moment that 2 Vipers got abducted, he's like, oh, I have to get the hell out of here, man. Like, there's no way I can stick around against 4 to 6 Colossus.
Yeah, this has been a very back and forth game, and I feel like a lot of this has come down to FireCake just being too aggressive, really trying to press the massive tech that he has. And it's like, yes, Vipers are very good, Swarm hosts are very strong, but he extends himself to a point where MaNa can abuse the lack of creep spread, since it's very difficult to spread creep cross map on these spawns, but also just the army compositions, because the Swarm hosts by themselves without the static defense and to defend against the Templar just walking forward is a really big problem. Look at this army for MaNa.
Look at the worker count for FireCake. He's on 99. Of course, he's going to morph a lot of it into static defenses and stuff, but he doesn't really have the money for that right now. 99 drones. That is 33 drones more than Snood recommends.
He is a rich boy, to say the least. And a bunch of Zealots are going to move in on cleanup duty to keep that number in check. Roddy, he's got a certain amount he wants to knock that day. Maybe he'll help him get back to Snoot's magic number as he picks this base off in the northwest. Meanwhile, pushing at the center position just outside the 4th base of FireCake. A massive army. These Colossi going ham. Here come the Templar looking to get the feedbacks. No abducts on the Colossi just yet. Blinding Cloud is nice, but he's starting to lose the Swarm host. Observer does get picked off.
He does lose that Observer, but these Storms are doing a lot of damage on these Swarm hosts, so a couple of them will die immediately. These Blinding Clouds are so annoying because Colossus kind of dirt because of it, and the Spore Crawler did some serious work there. Look at this one Zealot, man. He's on an extreme rampage. I swear to God, that's a Zealot that was holding the fort in the start of the game.
This Zealot's like, guys, I was just 4 drones away from knocking him back to 66. Come on, come on. We were so close.
The dream was alive. Anyway, that was not a great engagement there for MaNa, despite the fact he lost maybe 1 Colossus, but he was able to land 3 V-Packs, and he was able to kill a couple of Swarmos. I don't think that FireCake has ever been bleeding this many Swarmos in a 24-minute game.
Yeah, he's taken a massive beating, unable to build up that bank that we typically see Zerg players accumulate when they're running Swarmos. Shout out to these 2 lonely boys up top that have been stuck there forever as the Colossi start once again moving forward.
Prisoners of Wars.
No. He tried so hard. There's nowhere to go. It's all Ogre.
No. He was captured.
Those two guys are just like up there for like solid 8 minutes.
Yeah, I know. POWs.
What an awful ending to that.
Right when the Protoss army was about to save them. It was too late.
There's got to be a sad story somewhere, Roddy. These Zerglings are going to go for a counterattack on the right side. Photon cannons say nope. And this army has a lot of splash damage to push through those Locust waves. The Templar, there's still a lot of them to try to deal with this. Preemptive Blinding Cloud to force the Archons to run headstrong into the Locust waves. There's the Storm to help weaken those, and he's just looking for the feedbacks now. It's all about those abducts, and if he can stop this Protoss army, he just needs to get rid of these clusters, but I feel like there's almost too many of them at this point.
He's storming a lot, though, and he's running out of energy to feedback, and that is something that definitely worries me, because there is still a lot of... Well, actually, there are not that many Swarmos anymore. The Colossus is getting on top of it. FireCake did not reposition them. This might actually be the end.
He brought 3 observers this time. There's no escape for FireCake. Swarmos, as he knocks them all down, never broke down the rocks. He can't even return to the natural. A mothership finishes, and GG is called. MaNa ties the series 1-1.
That was one of the most explosive Swarmos games that I've ever seen that included FireCake. MaNa played great over there. It didn't really look all that phenomenal in a certain phase in the game, I felt, when he was forced to recall, wasn't really able to do any pressure. Then that first move out with like 6 to 8 Swarmos from FireCake was questionable. I guess if you can force MaNa into a position where he will do nothing but defend, then it will definitely snowball out of control. But he was too reckless, rallied them into the army, so he recollected himself. Then he went again, but then MaNa just had a phenomenal engagement where he feedbacked 3 Vipers before the battle even started, and he had those Stalkers coming in from the north side, so the Locust had no idea where they had to go. And then FireCake is like, man, now I have to run back again, and he lost so many Swarmos.
Yeah, it was really a case of FireCake overextending, you know, in that game. Swarmos can be really strong, but you don't take positions like that against a Protoss on this map when none of their bases are really exposed. Everything can just sit in one concentrated defensive position outside of those 4 bases, and then you have no creep spread. So when you're trying to run away from the Stalkers that are blinking up, even those Zealots without charge still got very close. It's a risk that you need to be able to win the game off of, otherwise you're just throwing away way too much.
The craziest thing about all that is that FireCake was taking base number 5 and 6 during that, like while being so aggressive, still taking so many edge creeps as well. And even though players get rich very quickly when they are on 4 bases, that's still a reasonable investment. That's an investment that does not go towards his army.
Yeah, usually it's not a big deal when you're playing Swarm Hosts because you just end up racking up a ridiculous amount of cash, but 25 Swarm Hosts that he lost in that game before the final engagement, when each one of those bad boys is 200 minerals. That's a lot of hatcheries you could have built.
And let's not forget about that tiny Muda switch that he threw in the middle of it, where MaNa did a very good job in not overreacting to it. I actually wouldn't have minded to see FireCake go all out on the Muda list, because I think he would be able to keep MaNa stuck on 3 to 4 bases for a very long time. Because I think if FireCake would have gone all out on it, he's going to get a certain phase in the game where he will get 35-40 Muda list in almost no time.
It was actually very smart, MaNa, to realize like you're probably looking to still play Swarm Host, not mass Muta. And I like that you mentioned that he did not overreact to the Mutalist play, because I feel like we kind of just grazed over that when oftentimes it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
We're loaded into the final game of this series. The loser will be eliminated from the World Championship Series Season 1 Premier League. In the bottom left position, representing France and Punchline, he's FireCake.
FireCake looks really calm in general.
Yeah, that's... you know, it's very...
Like nothing really phases him, like he's just here to play his game.
Very like plain appearance, I guess. His opponent in the top right position, representing Poland and Team Liquid, he is MaNa. Well, MaNa always has that look like, I really don't want to mess with this guy.
He's a, you know, he's a badass Eastern European after all.
You look at MaNa, you're like, I don't want to mess with him. You look at FireCake, you're like, can you help me with my math homework?
The funny thing is, as soon as MaNa is out of the game, he always has a smile on his face, and often he offers you candy.
Yeah, MaNa's a cool guy.
This is an urban legend, but it's true. MaNa
the urban legend. Like one time, MaNa offered me candy.
Yes.
It was really nice.
I wasn't sure what it was, but it was just a Snickers. So I said, thank you, MaNa. And then he brought me a lollipop too, and he brought me lots of other sweets.
Wow.
Like, wow, what a generous guy.
You play Protoss, though. Maybe there's like a Protoss brothership I don't know about.
No, I've seen him share his candy with everyone who wants it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm going to say the Terran membership is just, we just talk about replays about games where we won cheesing people. The Muslim gives out the invites for that if anyone's interested. FireCake has opened up with a spawning pool this game again, not going to make himself vulnerable to any type of early shenanigans as he moves in to take this hatchery. MaNa's opened up with the gateways. Probe comes in, he's like, okay, pool first, nothing really to worry about.
I can totally see the Muslim starting his own company one day, and he will be like the president of 2Rex Incorporated, something like that.
Like, it turns out, you know, I think business reports have been looking down recently. He's like, no, let's look at the business report where we succeeded from 2 years ago. Like, that's the one I want to look at.
Anyways, we are into Overgrowth, and this is, in my opinion, the best swarm host map out there. I definitely think that in a certain position, it's almost impossible for Protoss to win if you can get the perfect setup as a Zerg play, if you can be very rich, if you don't fall behind in the early mid-game, if you can get static defenses everywhere. It's very hard to find an opening. You're going to need perfect air control over and over and over again as a Protoss if you want to break that. I definitely think that FireCake has learned his lesson from the last game. He's like, MaNa, you came out guns blazing. Game number 1, you proxied me. That's fine. Game number 2, I'll return the favor and I'll be a little aggressive. And I think now he looks back at that game and he's like, man, like, I didn't even like play what I normally do. Like, why did I just do that? This is such a big match. Of course, the winner of this series will move on to the deciders match of Group C, where they will play against the loser of Hydra versus Bolt. So definitely no easy test.
Yeah, you really.
Either of these two.
Yeah, this is a difficult group, no matter what happens after this game. As this Nexus finishes up for MaNa, FireCake's doing a bit of nibbling on it, but it's not, you know, he's not worried about this.
No.
And he's going to be chrono boosting this Nexus for a while anyway. Did you know shields regenerate faster on a Nexus when you chrono it, Roddy?
I've heard about that, and I mean, like,
true?
No, I know it's true, but like, I recently somebody told me that, and they're like, Roddy, chrono boost that Nexus. I was like, why? I'm not even building probes. Like, the shields. I was like, I've played 10,000s of games of Protoss, and I did not know this.
Man. It's pretty cool.
Obviously, it doesn't work like that if the Nexus is actually being attacked by 2 Zerglings, because it's not regenerating any shield.
Yeah.
Unless it would also chrono boost the cooldown of shields regenerating, but I don't think that's the case.
If you think about it in like a sci-fi perspective, it's like technically chrono boosting the shields like should help a little bit when you're being attacked, right? I don't know. There's probably some weird thing called balance that gets in the way of that.
I'm sure I can get behind that logic, Nate, but I think that's only because I play Protoss.
Yeah, I don't actually know why I suggested that. I'm giving like really bad ideas that just hurt me here.
It's okay. David Kim is in the building. We can always throw him.
I'm gonna pass on that one.
It's like, Davey, let's have a cheeky drink tonight, and then suddenly tomorrow the patch notes, guys.
It's like well, Cyclones have been replaced with a second SCV. That doesn't do anything different at all. And Ravagers now shoot confetti instead of acid. Robotics Facilities finishing up for MaNa as he has on a couple of gateways. Warp Gate's about to finish up, but this isn't any type of aggressive opening for MaNa just yet. This Overlord for FireCake really wants to see these gases get taken. And I actually feel like these gases, they kind of look a little bit late. Would you agree, Kev? Or should FireCake be worried when he sees like you're adding on gates and there's no gas?
6 minutes and 30 seconds. It's possible. That is a War Prism, and there's definitely there are type of builds where you can just make 7 gates with a War Prism, so you can still warp in on creep. Interesting. Okay, so the sentry, he has not spotted the robotics facility yet, right? Sorry, man, I was just losing it. I could totally see Ravagers shoot confetti. That was just like making me the happiest child in this building.
That'll be the next April Fool's thing.
I mean, like, I have this build, you know it. I've done this build way more times than I'm willing to admit, where, okay, I think this is sort of an in-between version, where MaNa will definitely be looking to force field FireCake out of his main base, but if it doesn't do it, he still has the follow-up, because he's taking those extra simulators.
Oh,
I don't think this is an all-out gateway attack.
Oh, he's adding on 3 more, Kev. Going up to 6.
He definitely needs 8 then.
The weird thing is that he takes that gas.
Okay, that's really cool. He cleared his Zelnaga Watchtower with the Mothership Core. That's very important to mention. But look at the production tab. FireCake needs 1 unit against these type of builds.
Yeah, the way his units are spread out.
It's the Roach. He needs Roaches. You're right. Like, he spotted that assimilator. He saw that, you know, you still don't have any gases. That's very weird. If you're not on 3 bases yet, something weird is coming. This Roach production is very early. The sentry is being surrounded immediately. It's a disaster for MaNa.
MaNa immediately loses 2 very high energy sentries. That super expensive Stalker gets caught. I don't know how else he's going to be able to make this work. I feel it's like, I don't consider myself an expert on Protoss, but I see this. I like that he brought the probe to try to get pylons down with the Warp Prism, but you see how late that gas is, and you have to be thinking there's no fast tech. It could only be units.
This is very bad. I'm a little bit surprised that he went for this on the right side. I mean, it's kind of a cool move because he was using the Mothership Core to clear out vision, so he was just kind of hoping that FireCake would go on the automatic pilot and will build nothing but drones, but the opposite happened. FireCake spotted with the Overlord. He's like, man, like something is not right. I'm going to make a couple of Roaches.
He walled the natural, and with how much energy he has on his
super all-in.
Yeah, with how much energy he had on all of his next side, he just dumped all of it into chrono boosts on these gateways as they start to transform.
I know, like MaNa is super all-in, and in my opinion, if FireCake would research Burrow right now, there is no way that he's ever going to lose this game because there's no detection out on the map. But I think even without Burrow, he should be fine unless MaNa just drops force fields from Protoss heaven.
Yeah, he needs to make the dream come alive. There's no way he can win without playing 100% perfect from this point forward in this engagement.
And this one creep tumor, that's so good because this makes it so much harder. But it's going to force MaNa to be on creep all the time. We'll make these roaches a little bit quicker. I still would love to see FireCake get Burrow, because that would just be the icing on the cake, even though he's a FireCake, so maybe he shouldn't have icing.
I mean, icing on, I don't know.
Icing on the FireCake.
I can't even begin to imagine. These Lings and Roaches are spreading themselves out pretty well on top of all of this as he gets Roach speed. The force fields block off the first wave, but trying to do some cute micro to pick up these sentries from the Roaches. I just don't think there's enough gateway forces to actually knock this down just yet. He clears up half of it. It's something, Roddy.
Yeah, it's something, but he doesn't have that much DPS in his army. He needs more stalkers. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't have the income. These Roaches will start powering through real soon. These sentries are about to run out of energy, and look at the amount of Roaches that FireCake has produced.
Goodness gracious.
Spike here. He's still on creep as well. Oh, there's an observer. Where did it? Of course, he had an...
Now, MaNa fires up an Immortal now to complement this and maybe get ready for a next push afterwards, I'd have to imagine. Oh, he's losing a lot of the sentries, though. You want to get out with those? I'm surprised he dropped the Time Warp instead of recalling.
I completely forgot that he actually had a Warp Prism, so of course he had a robotics facility, so Burrow wouldn't have been as effective as it would have been. It makes so much sense right now. I'm sorry for that Burrow comment, because he did have a robotics facility, but FireCake just has way too much money, he has way too many Roaches. There's no way that MaNa is going to be able to power through this.
Yeah, it looks like France should be able to stay alive here in this group as MaNa gets pushed back one more time. The Immortals back home.
Fly to the main.
Do not appear to be enough
the last
to save
hope,
this.
Fly to the main.
Yeah.
Force field to FireCake out of his main, but FireCake is just going to counterattack on the other side of the map. He is rallying so many Roaches.
I've had enough of your shenanigans.
Oh,
and he even
left
has
a couple of Roaches
on the
there.
ramp.
Yep.
Oh man, FireCake's gonna run right up. He's like, yes, you have an Immortal, but I have more. I actually have enough Roaches that I am not scared of an Immortal or two. He starts to bust down this wall. The few sentries that are there burn their force fields, and this cuts down the production as well. If he could even afford to warping off all of these gateways, Roddy.
And this is a very, very, very scary number of Roaches. He can just start working on this Nexus if he wants to, and he will take it down at rapid speed. There is no energy for a Photon Overcharge either, but not even Photon Overcharge, as good as it is, would save this Nexus. MaNa's going to make the final haul, but these Roaches are getting nice and close to the Immortals. The sentries will fall, and I think with that, the hopes of MaNa will fall.
Yeah, it looks like the Frenchman will be knocking out MaNa here in the World Championship Series, round of 16. One last desperate attempt to stave this off with an Immortal on the high ground. His last force fields as the Roaches continue, as the Swarm continues to push forward. GG, FireCake advances, and MaNa is eliminated.
Great series by FireCake, you know, great reaction to whatever MaNa was throwing at him in game number 1 and game number 3. Definitely a little sloppy in game number 2, which is not something we normally see from him. But the way that he handled game number 3, you know, that's just the way that you expect a Zerg player on this level to deal with these overly aggro Protoss builds. He scouted, he identified, he wasn't stubborn, he made Roaches, and, you know, from the very get-go, the very first wraparound on the first 2 sentries, everything was perfect for FireCake.
Yeah, really, really well played by the French Zerg players, stepping out to some very loud cheers from the crowd, as he's got one more very difficult match ahead of him if he still wants to make it to the top 8.
Man, his audience is alive. They're feeling it. They're very happy. And, you know, if you can defeat Stalky 3-0, imagine a world where Paul defeats Hydra, then suddenly we're looking at a very, very interesting ZvZ.
That was the first thing that on top of my mind, because if he is able to take, if Polt's able to advance out of this group, we have a very crazy decider match. But let's hear from the man himself. FireCake is on the main stage with Smix.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, FireCake, on your standing ovation and your victory over MaNa. You guys have actually played each other quite a few times before, and I'm wondering, the last time you guys faced each other, you actually came out on top. Because of that, were you confident going into this series, or were you a little bit nervous that he might have something prepared for you?
I was pretty confident, but in the first game, I knew he was going to do a proxy 2-gate, and I expected to scout it. But I don't know, my Overlord didn't reach the pylon. And then I feel very stressful because it wasn't expected. And, but yeah, that's all.
Well, it wasn't expected, but you still held and won that game. The fans here absolutely love you. And speaking of that game too, FireCake, you're known for being very good with your Swarm host style. It's very famous. And unfortunately, the game still didn't go in your favor. What do you think went wrong there?
I don't know. I played very bad on the second game. I tried to use my Swarm host offensively, but it didn't work and I lost a lot of them. Then I tried to play defensive, but I didn't have enough economy, so I died slowly.
Well, FireCake, you are the only French representative here in the top 16. What is it like to hear the fans here cheering for you the loudest, and does that make each win that you have more special?
It's awesome. I don't really know what else to do. It's really awesome to see that many people love the game, and I'm really happy to be here today.
And last but not least, I want to give you a chance to say something to all the fans here in Port-de-France, please.
Sorry.
You can say something to the fans here that came to cheer for you.
Okay. Merci beaucoup à tout le monde d'être venu. Ça fait vraiment chaud au cœur et j'espère que vous apprécierez les games suivantes. Voilà.
Thank you very much, FireCake, and best of luck in your next match. Experts, what did you have to say about that series?
What an atmosphere here, gentlemen, after FireCake's victory. French crowd loving that, and rightfully so, a good victory, well claimed against MaNa, and he played very well throughout that series. Not as expected as we thought it would go down though, right? Did you expect it to play out like this?
The first game, no, but Sean, what did I tell you about 2-base versus FireCake? What did I say?
I know, you did say this. You said it doesn't work.
Exactly, and did it work?
No, it didn't.
No, it did not.
It did not. Do you think it was the right choice for MaNa to try this?
No.
He knows this though, he knows this.
Yeah, I think it was a really bad choice. Like, there is quite a few ways he would have done a lot better. He should have just, played with the third base. Much like in the previous game. The previous game was Deadwing cross position. It's pretty tough to make Swarm host work. And FireCake kind of lost patience. He had a few mistakes here and there. But on Overgrowth, I do think that MaNa, if he played a more straight-up game, just being very aggressive, he would have had a much better chance than with what he did here.
What do you think about the Deadwing game, especially the way that FireCake played so aggressively with his Swarm host, and MaNa was very mobile? I think he played rather well on that map.
Yeah, it was similar to the Violet games in the last round, and I think that was the best way for MaNa to go about it. Get up that 3-base instead of going for the 2-base.
Yeah.
And then you can put the pressure on with the Blink Stalk, because he's great at moving his Stalkers around, controlling and put them in the right positions. FireCake did get a bit too excited at some points. He got very, very aggressive with his Swarm host and got him caught out of position, and that's what cost him the game, ultimately. But I was just outside in the crowd, and I recorded a little video, but damn, the support from the crowd here is huge.
It is, and we haven't really seen this from the French crowd for a French player on a big international tournament for a while. I suppose Stefano was the last big name that was able to do this. What's that feel like for you, Todd?
It's pretty cool to see a French player do well here in France, and I hope it's going to continue, but I'm a little bit worried because Hydra Pult as a reward for beating MaNa is not the greatest of gifts.
But as they said, he's good in ZvZ, and there's the potential that Paul can actually defeat Hydra here, so that could be the determining factor. But for me, a series like this for FireCake are irrefutable evidence that he's taken on a position that it's just not his image anymore, of course. He's always been about the Swarm host. Everyone remembers him for these long Swarm host games, but FireCake can do so much more than that.
And he showed it, and he's going to have to if he wants to try to advance, because he's not advanced yet. Even though the crowd, it felt like it out there, he's not quite advanced yet. Let's take a closer look at the bracket, and we can actually show you exactly where the players are. Our next game on the main stage here is going to be Pult versus Hydra to decide who goes through in first place. A big game between those two. FireCake awaits the loser of that. Pult, he's already played and lost 2-0, so a lot of people are hoping that maybe Hydra drops down, but that, still, especially the way that Hydra's been playing recently, he got to the final of Gfinity last weekend, he's on form. For FireCake, getting out this group is going to be difficult.
Yeah, Hydra is on fire lately, and I think, personally, he's a massive favorite against Paul.
Yeah?
Yeah?
You know what? He thinks so too. I spoke with him. He was very, very confident.
Polt was also very confident.
Yeah, Polt is always confident.
Yeah,
when has Polt ever said, I'm going to lose?
Never.
Never. He never, ever says that. But guys, we'll talk more about Polt versus Hydra in a couple of seconds. We're going to go to a very quick commercial break. And when we return, it's going to be the winners match of this group.